How you guys doing today? My name is Patrick Ivy. All right. What we're talking about today is that corporations, they profit from the incarceration of individuals. As such, they need prisoners to make a profit. This is a problem because you can't make money off of people, you have to make money off of property. So how do they do that is that they lobby for laws to be changed, and they also put sentencing structures on judges, meaning that they can only sentence between a range of years, minimum and maximum, rather than they sentence based off of what they feel is appropriate to the crime. So, how this is relevant to society is that the whole point of incarceration is to rehabilitate an individual, to teach them how to function productively in a society. The main focus for these corporations is not to rehabilitate these individuals, it's to make money from them. So what I wanted to talk about today is how this actually occurred, like how it developed, how it's legal, because the first thing you would think is how would this be legal for anybody to do? It's an interesting answer to that. I have personal experience with this because I was incarcerated from 2004 to 2010. I was placed out in Yuma. In 2008, literally right when Obama won office, I was transferred to Oklahoma to a private facility. The transport in itself was kind of traumatizing. They put like 70 of us on a bus, and the bus had a bunch of cages on them, and we're sitting real close knit. Our knees is touching this metal thing, and we're shackled the whole time. They give us these lunch bags to eat, on the way, but it's a 3-day trip, and that's how you're transported all the way through. There's no stops. There's no quick rest stops for you to rest. You're literally sleeping like this the whole time that you're going. Not cool, but I remember the experience of feeling like, we had no say-so in this. They took us out of Arizona where all our family was at, where we get visitations and we get that support, and they took us to a whole nother state, and we had no control over it whatsoever. I was always wondering, why is that? And so I remember back on the prison yards too, they used to have civilians, a group of civilians walking the complex, and they'll give them a tour of the area, and they'll say, well, this is this, and those are that, and really what I realized is those are investors. So it made you feel about yay big. So what I wanted to do first is establish how this was legal. So we remember the 13th Amendment. It abolished slavery, and then it abolished involuntary servitude. In addition to that, it said that slavery and involuntary servitude was no longer legal except as crime as a punishment. And that makes sense at the time because you will see that individuals will like break rocks in old school prisons and stuff, or they'll put them to work so that way they can contribute to the community. And in a way, the prisons were sort of self-sufficient. Those guys develop working habits that could be productive when you get back to society, things of that nature. Well, someone else thought that it would be a good idea to use that part of the amendment to pretty much make prisoners property. One of the things you realize when you get locked up is your rights is removed. Like pretty much all of them. You have laws that will protect you, that you're treated to an extent in a humane way. But keep in mind, you're incarcerated for treating other people in an inhumane way or doing other crimes that just breaks the law that's not conducive to a community. So when they found a legal foundation for transforming a person into property, they were able to do pretty much anything they wanted to. So how did this develop? Well, back in the 70s, transitioning to the 80s, prisons had this incarceration binge. They were blowing up. One of the things that contributed to that was the tough on crime from Ronald Reagan. And if I know you know politics, and I definitely know you know politics. What was interesting about that is that tough on crime, where drugs was introduced into communities. Who did it? Who knows? But drugs was introduced into communities, and they went after these guys. It was a big drug crime. You got organized crime, you got everything in that nature, and the government was like, we got to fight back. So they did a tough on crime campaign. In addition to that, we can kind of contribute that to an incarceration binge, but they didn't have enough support to really incarcerate all these individuals that they were just now wanting to lock up. Well, Ronald Reagan was also a person who felt that big government was bad, that government tied into everything, trying to fix everything was not good, you know. And at that time, people thought that big government will fix a lot of our social, economic problems, social problems, or whichever the case. The government will fix it. The government will fix it. So what would happen is Reagan figured that it would be a good idea to reduce the size of the government's participation in the incarcerations, the prisons, and everything that formed those, and said, well, we can outsource this. You know, get a private company to manage this better and cheaper. And that's where the private sector came in. They were like, hey, we can do this. We can do this cheaper. We can do this better than the government can. So what they would do is they'll get private investors or private funds investors to develop these prisons. And then they would lease them to the government. In addition to that, the government would also pay them or contract them to manage these prisons as well as federal prisons. So now we got a market, right? In the beginning, the market wasn't strong because a lot of people opposed privatized prisons. So what would happen is in the first 2 years, you have two big companies that participate in the privatizing prisons. CCA, which is Corporate Corrections of America, and the GEO Group. And they went through a few names. One of the names were somewhere here. Oh, sorry. Wackenhut Corrections Corporation, but now they're known as a GEO Group. Before that, they were actually people that sell houses. Real estate. Thank you. See, I knew you guys were listening. So they were a real estate company, right? So, but they didn't do too well there. They changed the name to Wackenhut, then they changed the name to GEO Group and invested into the privatization of prisons. Well, who's investing in this? The top 50% of the wealthiest people in America are investing in this. CCA, who I primarily wanted to kind of bring up, is controlling 52% of the market. And so what's interesting about them is that when they first got started, they were backed by Kentucky Fried Chicken. They were based out of Tennessee. They developed back in '83. When they got started, like I said, the first couple of years, they had a lot of backlash. So they lost a lot of stock, but people kept investing in them as they were lobbying to get, you know, the support from the government. And as long as you get a government contract, anyone knows when government's paying for something, they're going to continuously pay for it as long as we're producing results. Or that way they don't have to deal with it. And that may be opinion, but it's supported. You know what I mean? So in conclusion, and how this all works out together is we have CCA, we have GEO, we have about 14 other private sectors from 1985 to 2001. So about 14 private sectors that run private prisons. And the private sector was almost shut down. Last year in October, I don't know if you guys ever saw in the news, but the Obama administration said that they're going to start withdrawing the federal funding of the private sector for private prisons. When he said that, their stocks dropped. In addition to that, Hillary was picking up a lot of headway in her campaign, and she said that she's going to end private prisons. And when she said that, their stock dropped even further, all the way down to $14.50 per share. Hillary didn't win the election. Trump won the election, and Trump is a businessman. So since Trump won, their stock surged to $31.90 a share. The private sector is a billion-dollar company. And it became so successful off the backs of prisoners. And the reason why this is a big problem is because when a person gets locked up and he's not getting rehabilitated, literally they're just having them sit there. There's no programming, there's no programs to help them develop any skills or skill sets for them to have when they get out. And that's what reduces recidivism. Recidivism is when a person who was incarcerated recommits another crime, different or the same, and goes back to prison. Well, the point of recidivism is profit for them. So why do they want to do anything that's going to stop their profit from happening? And that's why I wanted to inform everyone today in regards to punishment for selling. Thank you.
Did he make the tag?